See, this is really foggy.
I don't know.
This could be bad.
What?
I said this could be bad. I don't think it's ready for my weight.
What is it?
The rolling chair. I looked at Maria. She bought new office chairs for the conference room, and I can't fit in. I said, you need to get fat people chairs.
Yes, the auditorium. The auditorium here.
Yeah. So we have meetings. I'm standing up. She goes, you can sit down. And I just look at her. She just starts laughing because she knows why I'm sitting down. Using derogatory language. Cars. Okay.
Yeah.
You're gone. I told him, I want to told him, I said, you're not criminal, this is nothing criminal at all.
Yeah.
But the official has the right to say, I want you to leave.
You're out.
Leave.
If they say you're out, you're out. We're packing.
Don't worry.
So how's the middle school treating you?
So far, so good. I feel like I don't know, but no, I like it.
It's good.
She was fast through it. Just passed through.
Yeah, that's the practice.
Okay. What's up, Chase?
What's going on?
How are you? Time's that game start?
I thought it was 7 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock.
Oh,
I know. So I lost Jess and Jimmy's been with me now. So
that's brutal.
yeah.
Have fun. Is the agenda and everything on the drive? Like, I was gonna look at the middle school program of studies and the changes, or is it not on?
It's on the, public,
Okay,
if you go to district.
yeah, on the link, on the resource under school board? Okay.
Yeah, there's PDFs there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so district, and then.
I got it, January, academic achievement.
Cat's dragging me right now.
Hey, what's up, man?
How are you?
Oh, Mikhail. What?
Feel like hell.
Again? Yeah. See, I got it.
Did
I
you?
don't know if it was just like straight through.
Yeah.
I go to work on Tuesday, Wednesday, I had a meeting with that, and then I left at like 1. We also had 1 to 9 o'clock the next morning.
No kidding.
I woke up, still didn't feel good. And then by like 1, I was feeling like able to move around.
Vomiting and all.
And then,
I came in yesterday.
and then Friday, I went to work, I still didn't feel too good. Saturday, I woke up, I felt like a little bit better. My daughter had a basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
So we started driving in the snowstorm halfway there. It was canceled. Turned around, went home, dude, as soon as I got
How
home.
far did you make it?
I took halfway into the game and yawned.
Okay.
And then they canceled it. And then by the time I got home, dude, I fell asleep from like 3 to 5:30 maybe. And then I fell asleep for bed at like 9:30. Today I felt fine. Just like tired.
So you got to.
What's that? I think, typically they are.
Man. I don't know if I'm coming in tomorrow. You got chills and sweats.
Couple seats down.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think I.
The only good thing is
I don't think I
you've
can
gone
sit.
through your cycle already.
Yeah, it was like one after the other. So everybody thought fine.
Are you going sick right now?
What's that?
I just got over it though. I was like, felt bad. We had Corona like the beginning of December. And then we all got flu over Christmas. It was just, I was literally shivering for like a day and a half. We had Christmas morning, we woke up, the game was going on at 5 a.m. Christmas morning. Yeah.
Already? You trying to copy or did you?
No, I'm just trying to print out the,
I have copies of stuff, what do you want?
I just got to print it. I just got to print out some changes.
I have it. This one, mine. I printed out extras for some. Warrant.
That'd work.
You got it? Okay. Yeah, I have backup hard copies in case the power goes.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the wind's coming now, does it?
It's better.
Yeah.
What's that?
The wind.
Oh, no. That rain today was freezing. And then this kid, this little 5th grade kid can't find his bus. The bus is, like, it doesn't matter what number you are, you should always park in the same spot. One bus driver doesn't park in the spot he's supposed to. I mean, these kids are through the whole, like, this poor little kid can't find his bus. I'm thinking, like, dude, out of all days to go down.
Running around in the
Yeah.
awful rain.
Yeah. And then the bus that he was supposed to be on didn't have, that bus wasn't the actual bus number on it. It was, you know, he's like, I ride 124, but it's really 145. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, like,
Yeah.
not today. You know, and then the poor little guy's like all worried and,
Yeah. He's never gonna get home.
yeah, I'm thinking like, dude, today's not the day. For this.
First things first. Can you look at the restroom, I remember being shown what was before.
Yeah, and out these doors, make a right and then a right down the first floor.
Okay, that's what I thought. Hi.
What's new in your building, Aaron?
No,
It's efficient today, huh? Huh? Yeah, we can't even talk to everybody in the audience.
Well, the question is,
No, there's no such thing.
so we need to ask that after. Do you see people?
Yeah.
Because you want to make
Jamie said she was all good.
it might be.
I haven't seen her on the move.
She responded, she accepted the invitation, but she hasn't, sent a lot of
Have her on the text line if need be, so we'll.
It's my home.
Mr. Manager, how are you this evening?
Good.
Nice to see you as always. So, where's the jacket?
Yeah, I know, I should have. I like it. I went.
Dude, I went and looked for one. I swear to God. You got that. Hey, please.
Hey, how are you? So nice to see you. I like the shirt. Hey, wait a second. Wait a second. What's the second?
Yeah.
Brad.
Me and Joey.
Jerry is awesome, so.
She said she's still trying to work.
Whatever your conflict is, Ray is actually what she is. Yeah, I don't really get it. Yeah, connecting.
Yeah, I want to make.
I think
Maybe if I said.
it's always one of those things where like, we understand.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I want to make sure. Because I think like maybe next week we have.
Yeah.
This one,
I got heat at the cafeteria, so then we'll
it
might.
We got up there. There, over here.
I just had a taco, beans, rice, smart bowl. If you use that, it helps for this month. But moving forward, once the policies approved, it's like, why would they get her to say it's second reading, it'll be approved? You pick the worst outcome of this. March.
Second reading.
You're like, your wife's like, I want to say. I've just
Never did. After like day three, like, you got past lunch.
So we don't need 5. You don't need 5 for us to go to 17.
No. Brian. Still leader of the clubhouse today, like everybody else. No demonstration. Moves forward to Saturday.
It's all I think it's on there. I think that gives people
There should be an exception in safety, trace free, you can waive the or it's only with serious operations. But I think particularly with critical operations or safety.
Right, listen. You need me.
Reiterate so everybody understands.
Right.
And the public.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have some.
Yeah, you can almost do it.
Hey, what's happening?
No, I'm saying I'm here.
Yeah.
How you doing? Good, how are you?
Straight. No, I think others this week.
Okay.
Probably. There was a specialized training.
I'm not gonna back here.
There was like a 3-day training.
Yeah, mine's
But I understand.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
And even before, snow days. Yeah, now, now I think you can almost.
So, my plan is, I would do the same thing for your obvious.
Okay.
It was.
Minus.
How are you doing?
But it shouldn't be.
Good.
Yeah, you're right.
That's all right.
No, I'm saying it's going to go. I'm just saying like the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
We all did that.
Okay, no, that's good, we're on the same page. I didn't want to make us.
No,
I swear, I was either talking to you or him, I didn't want to go.
Yeah, and I think it goes.
Woke up to it, and then I got it.
Yeah.
So it was just like, so that kind of threw off a couple days there for the break.
We step off the stage and we're in front of the line, go in front and set things up down the long field.
I know she really appreciated it.
Well, I just left them, she didn't pick up my phone.
Yeah, she never did whenever I would call.
Out of the loop, and we just talked about it. So the first grade, second grade, there's 5 days forward to
And then she said, on top, and he was done, so I didn't say anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all the presidents. No, I'm not sure if you guys.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna send, I'd rather just send it to you and you guys. Yeah, she told me she sent it to you, 'cause I thought I just got it.
Yeah, so did I, first, because I know.
I know hard, but I didn't want to, except for that, it's actually.
Yes.
For that, exactly. Also.
That's super nice.
Yes.
If I ever get it,
Have they said when that game is, and there's a chance that they get postponed for later because of weather? They're supposed to really get hit hard.
You waving to me? Oh. Oh, I like. Huh? Meeting's over, we're
well,
done.
yeah.
7 hours late.
I'm gonna save myself 2 conversations. Something piece of operation has to work with it. Somehow those get involved in getting people. But also, do the couple of at the middle school.
We're trying to give you a copy and. More.
More, what do you think? I want to have more students. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
You're the student voice sitting with the microphone.
Yeah, I think we should.
Maybe we can get with the middle school, the government.
You just want to look into the presidents of say, I'll like notify you and just give me.
And I can leave them all, then I'll get them with our little guy.
Yeah.
We say and I'm gonna tell them.
A couple days after break. Yes, this is what we're doing now. Yeah, it's just like everything.
I have,
Keep your hands on the inside. Nothing in my office. But I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm going to change,
That's the time, that's the time.
We have to pass it over.
Yeah, it's happening.
I have friends that are, lots of friends that are attorneys and judges. You want to do an internship?
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Everybody doing good?
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, I mean, I know all.
Yeah.
It's good if I have to.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah,
History.
you can-
I've heard about here.
Uh-oh.
No, you said my wife with an IEP. She has nothing but good to say.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yes.
How's everything?
You know, this is only the,
Yeah,
this is only the second meeting. We can expect us to spend some money.
I'm very happy. Then, see
And
how
the phone rings off the hook.
see how, yeah. You won't be
The
cutting
vicious
your-
emails
you won't be
are
cutting
coming.
your grass in the middle of the afternoon at that point.
Or I ran into a forward member, she's like, you know, I'm not here, I don't have to go. Yeah, shopping.
I agree with you.
We'll
I do.
catch.
Yes, I have right next semester actually, I have a first
You
grade.
know, I always.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm not, no, nine out of
Month come Friday, right?
Look, I can run it, yeah.
Last semester of your senior year.
Oh, it's exciting,
Yep.
exciting, nerve-wracking.
Me and nine, every once in a while. you
No,
get that
I had to
one.
read, so that's why I'm like excited. I have my like, and
Right now, it's right here.
In Miss Martello's, how'd you do?
I think good, I think I did all
Very
right.
nice.
I felt confident, that's good feedback.
It's good practice for what you may become.
Thank you, for
Good
sure.
for you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
We're at the school, I mean, it's supposed to go to the West End, so it's actually. My uncle was a pair.
Oh, okay.
A long time. Mark.
How about this? Yeah, how are you?
Good.
My commute, I'll be around by 11 here. Well,
Yes.
that's 8 minutes. And now I hit one traffic light.
Did you say double?
Yeah, from 4 to 8 minutes. And there's a light, but I could make it right. No, I could make it right up there going on.
To avoid it.
Yeah, there's more of a stop
They're
sign.
in college, home and stuff. They're actually back today, so I'm actually sent through next week. So I'll be after tonight. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was just like their personality, that's what I'm like, I don't know what else to gender. Like, I don't know. Like, so I'll put in the little
Listen, I like the green light.
I just hope I don't look like an idiot saying I make it less.
Yeah, I describe that in my email. Yeah, this is the restructuring. It just ranges. There's
Sideline, middle, big. Right?
1, 2,
So they're like, no, we'll just get them.
1A.
Yeah. You know, other people actually.
You know, you just look at the closet, you look at his shoe size, and
Oh, yeah, there we go. They have 2 6-footers. Yeah. Other people actually brought that up to me.
Good.
And I didn't say, I was like, you know.
My mom shows her. Yeah. Like, kind of see like, on the wall. Okay. Like, so she wanted, like, yeah.
That's normally, it's up to you. If you context, we're back in with you, so there's nothing. Yeah, normally, it's gonna be,
I'll find another computer else. Yeah.
Oh, got it just in time.
Am I supposed to be on some color? I could have just yelled over and said. I'm used to being yelled at. Sparse crown. I got some disease. Oh, she wanted them over there, that's all.
Grandma's macro? Okay, we'll call to order our meeting, our discussion meeting for Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. If you will all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Macro, roll call.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Dr. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Arndt?
Here.
Ms. Chudowitz?
Here.
Mr. Caligiuri?
Here.
Dr. Richardson?
Here.
Mr. Sokolsky?
Here.
Mrs. Stepnick?
I'm here, and I apologize for not being here tonight.
Mr. Strauke?
Here.
And Student Representative Ms. Schollert?
Here.
Good. Okay, the board met in executive session on January 8th, 2024 and January 9th, 2024 to discuss matters of education purposes, litigation, safety, personnel, and real estate. Citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments for tonight?
Mr. Rittmeyer, any citizens' comments this evening? Nope. Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to academic, we are not moving on to academic achievement and activities. We're going to adjust and have Jamie Doyle from PFM do her presentation this evening. She has another meeting to go to, so we're going to put her first. Mr. Manzer?
Loud and clear, hopefully you can hear me as well.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate virtually. I really appreciate that. I would much prefer to be there in person with you, but this weather's just been a little crazy today. And I will go ahead and screen share if that's okay.
We can display the presentation if needed.
So hopefully you can see my screen now.
There, it's loaded behind you.
Yep.
Awesome. So this is really just an update of the presentation that we made last June. And I'll show you where the updates are. But starting off talking about the market and interest rates is where I always like to start these conversations. And this is an index that we follow very, very closely in the tax-exempt market. And what the top snapshot of this index tells us is we're currently at the blue line, and we're enjoying an inverted yield curve, meaning the rate dips down a little bit as we go out, years 4 through 12, I'll call it, and then it starts to resume its normal upward sloping shape, albeit it's fairly flat on the long end of the curve. So what I mean by this is the best of both worlds for the district is on the short end of the curve at which you invest, you're still enjoying about a 5.5% investment rate, I'll call it on average. And on the long end of the curve at which you borrow, when you borrow money for your capital improvements, not only are we below historic averages, but the borrowing rate is even lower than the investment rate right now. So in my example, if you can invest at 5.5% right now, you can borrow at 4.5% right now, maybe even a little lower than 4.5% if we were doing the borrowing today. So that's what I mean by the best of both worlds. If you look at the middle snapshot, it's the same index, it just shows us what it's looked like all the way back to 1993. And we drew a red box around the far side of the chart, and we blew that red box up down below. That's what this is, so that you can really get a bird's eye view of what has happened in the market going back to the beginning of calendar year 2022. And in particular, the far right-hand corner, the fact that borrowing rates have done nothing but trend downward basically since Halloween, the end of October. So that's all good news because investment rates have stayed high, but borrowing rates have trended downward quite a bit, about 130 basis points or 1.3% just since the end of October. So that comes as a surprise to many people because you hear all the doom and gloom on the economic news and you hear a lot about mortgage rates, having 6% handles, for example, right now. That's not the case in the tax-exempt world. You'd be looking at something with a 4% handle. The next page is a lot of bullets and a lot of words, but in this first section, we laid out the options that we're going to walk through in just a minute. So you will see for illustrative purposes, because as you make decisions and decide what projects you want to do and when and how much, these will all get refined to help guide that conversation. But for the time being, based on what we know now, scenario 1A would be a full project at O'Block, Pivot, and the middle school in one transaction all at one time. And not that we're suggesting that you do that, but that we want you to have a point of comparison of what that might look like if you took on all of the debt service all at once, and therefore it would hit your budget all at once. In scenario 1B, we fully finance those same exact projects, only we don't do it all at one time. We implement a multi-step borrowing strategy to allow you to phase the debt service and the borrowing into your budget more gradually, and the money would need to be borrowed in conjunction with your cash flow needs in your construction draw schedule. In scenario 2, we said, what does it look like if we just do a 3-year, 3-step plan of finance and we keep it bank qualified? And bank qualified means in IRS world that you issue $10 million or less per calendar year. So basically, in scenario 2, it would provide a little less than $30 million, and in that scenario, you would need to prioritize, your most $30 million of your most needed projects. And in that scenario, it does preserve a drop-off in the future for other projects beginning in 2032. Because these are some of the things, we want to start to think about it and weigh, what do you want to do now and what might be a little further down the road. And then finally, in scenario 3, this would be a 4-year borrowing plan, multi-step, and this would involve restructuring some of your existing debt and stretching that out a little bit further to make room for new money. And the goal in this one, and I'll show you how much project you can do with that in just a minute, but the goal was to keep your local effort, or that number that you need to budget for every year in your budget, level that off at $9.1 million. And in that scenario, you see you wouldn't have a drop off for future projects until you get out to 2046. And then just a note, a reminder, if any of your projects turn out to be Act 39 projects, which the acronyms for that everybody is familiar with is ESCO, Energy Savings Contracts, or sometimes they're called GISA, Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreements. If any ESCO or GISA becomes part of the project, due to the procurement process on those projects, they're limited, they have a hard stop in their amortization schedules of 20 years. So we just need to know that so we can factor that into the plan of finance and build it accordingly. In that next section, just some general bullets. There's different ways, different approaches to financing your new money for capital improvements. And again, we're suggesting looking at multiple financings to take advantage of calendar year limits. Again, that's that $10 million or less per calendar year where cash flow allows, and phasing it into your budget more gradually. In section 3, just a reminder that a reimbursement resolution, if that becomes of interest at any point in time, a reimbursement resolution is a fairly simple resolution that you pass that preserves your legal right if you need to front money for a project. It preserves your legal right to reimburse yourself from future borrow proceeds. So you don't really do that just because, but the timing strategically can be critical if you find yourself starting to spend a lot of money on the project before the borrowing shows up in the construction fund. We may want to revisit that. And then in the next section, section 4, we need to talk about federal tax law for just a minute. And the key words in section 4 are reasonable expectations. So the IRS doesn't let us just go borrow tax-exempt money at these attractive levels just because. The district needs to have reasonable expectations that you can spend 85% of the proceeds within 3 years from settlement. And so if we do a staggered plan with multiple borrowings, it means each one of those has a settlement date and would have its own 3-year test based on draw schedule and how you think you're going to spend the money. Second prong of the test is you have to have reasonable expectations that you can incur within 6 months of settlement a substantial binding obligation to spend at least 5%. Doesn't mean you have to have it spent, it just means you're at the point, it's usually that early upfront contract with your architect or your ESCO or GISA provider that satisfies that requirement. And then the third prong of the test is just that you proceed with the projects you've selected with due diligence. That last section, I alluded to this a couple of times already, but just to spell it out, the bank qualified interest rates are, if you are issuing $10 million or less in a calendar year, it's the lowest possible tax exempt rate that you can secure, and it's usually lower, it depends on the market, but it can be lower than a non-bank qualified interest rate, anywhere from 5 basis points to 0.25%. So it can be meaningful in the long run. And then the other benefit of $10 million or less per calendar year, where it makes sense, is a shorter call feature. You get a 5-year call feature on that instead of 7 to 10 years. And you as the district, of course, want the shortest possible call feature. That's the date to which you promise the end investors, the institutions or individuals that buy your bonds, you promise them they can hold the bond to a certain date. So you want that to be shorter, they want that to be longer. The shorter it is, the more flexibility you have in the future. If, a refinancing makes sense, if interest rates go down even lower and it makes sense to refund for savings, or if you needed to restructure and stretch your debt out a little further, or, if you had some windfall and you just wanted to pay some of your debt down faster, that 5-year call feature will be an important component on some portion of the borrowing plan. The next page is your current debt portfolio, and as always, I monitor this page for refunding opportunities. The top half of the page is gross debt service, meaning principal and interest on each of your various issues. So when you do your budget, out here in column 12, that's the gross amount that you budget for debt service, principal and interest. And then the bottom half of the page nets out the old grandfathered plan con reimbursement that you receive on some of your issues. And you can tell which ones receive that old grandfathered plan con reimbursement by the line near the bottom that says PE percentage. If there's a percentage on there, that means it's getting that old grandfathered plan con reimbursement. And so the bottom half is principal plus interest minus plan con reimbursement to arrive in column 24 at the net effect on your budget annually. And I'll call that $7.45 million a year currently. And so column 24 is also really important as we think about how to potentially structure new debt to accomplish your capital improvement needs. You will notice that your 2013A and 2013B bonds are highlighted in yellow. That's because we're actually a little past the call date at this point in time, and that's fine because it's your option and your option alone. And it's not just on that date; it's any day thereafter. So technically we could refund those if we wanted to, And you'll see when we get to the last option we're gonna look at this evening, that those are part of the idea of the restructuring in that final option. So we'll look at that in just a minute. So let's look at the first scenario. This is scenario 1A. This would be for a total construction fund of $68,485,000. It would do all three of the projects that I mentioned, which were O-Block, Pivot, and Plum Middle School in one transaction. And so down below, you can see if you did nothing, a little bit too far. In column 3, there's your existing local effort that we just looked at on the prior page, if you did nothing new. And in column 4, here's what the new debt would look like on this 68 million, I'm just gonna call it 68.5 million, rounding up slightly, of projects if you issued it all at one time. So you can see in column 4, you need about 3.65 million new dollars, slightly less in year 1, I'll call it, but then it kind of levels off at $3.65 million a year until some of your existing local effort in column 3 starts to drop off. And you can see that happens in 2032, where it goes from 7.4 million down to 6.9 million and change. So when that drop off occurs, this wraparound structure in column 4 increases the payment size in lockstep with your old debt going down. Because by state law, all in, old debt, new debt, in column 5, as column 4 together, you'd be level at about $11.12 million a year, I'll call it, and that would satisfy state law. Because by state law, you can't have any bullets or balloons. You have to have either overall level debt service or declining. You're declining. You just can't have big bullets or balloons. So if you did this all at one time, it'd be about 2.36 mils is your millage equivalent. And you can see in that final column, it would hit your budget pretty quickly. About 2.17 mils in the upcoming budget that you're working on, and then about 0.2 of a mil in fiscal year ending 2026, and then you'd keep that in your budget, and you'd stay level at around 11.1 million. Okay? Now we're going to compare option 1A to option 1B. Option 1B finances the same projects, no difference. All it does is breaks the borrowing out in pieces. And we broke out as many pieces as we could that were a little less than 10 million to take advantage of those bank qualified interest rates and 5-year call features. And now you can see it's still 2.36 mils at the end of the day. But you can see at the top of column 19, if you work your way down, it phases into your budget much more gradually than the rapid phase in on the prior option. And, assuming that interest rate assumptions stay the same, you pay a little less interest over the life if you were comparing the totals of option 1A and B, because you're not issuing all of that instantly, you're issuing it gradually over time, so you pay a little less interest. That's the only difference between 1A and 1B, timing and the multi-step strategy. Then we go on to option 2, scenario 2, and this one's a little bit more arbitrary as far as what projects you would do. Scenario 2 just says, well, what if we did 3 different calendar years, 2024, 2025, 2026, and we stayed just under that $10 million calendar year limit to get the bank qualified rates and the 5-year call? How much, that adds up to just under 30 million. How much would that cost us if we just did, our top 29,265,000, our top priority projects? And so you can see down below that would cost you about 1 mil, and that could be spread out basically over 3 different fiscal years to phase that in gradually. And then we just drew boxes in column 12 to give you, illustrate and make it clear that, you know, where you are today, your local effort is $7,438,000, and where you would need to get to, if you did this option, would be about $9,015,000. However, this option preserves flexibility because now you see, you start to have drop-offs, and the first one of consequence, I'll call it, you know, starts to happen around 2032, where you drop from 8.9 to 8.6 to 8.3. So leaving room and drop-offs in the future for whatever your next projects are, priority-wise, is part of this strategy. But again, that basically answered what does 1 mil get us in the way of dollars to do capital improvements. And then the next option, scenario 3, this one provides a total construction fund of $45,880,000, so not the whole entire amount that we looked at in scenario 1A and 1B that was originally $68,485,000. So this would not do all of those projects, but we backed into a multi-step plan and answered the question of keeping your debt service level at the end of the day in column 17 at about $9.1 million. So it's still, column 18, roughly that same 1 mil, but how we're increasing how much project you can do over and above scenario 2 is we're restructuring those old 2013A and 2013B bonds that are past their call date. And we're stretching that debt service on those old issues out a little bit further in order to make some space to layer the new debt in and keep, you know, the payments, like I said, around $9.1 million, so that you need roughly a little over 1 mil to fund that. You know, the downside to this option is, you know, the upside is you can do more projects. The downside is now there's no drop off in column 17 for whatever the next priorities are until you get out to 2046, where it drops from 9.1 million down to 6.9 million. So, you know, just some food for thought as you think about how much project you want to do and when you want to do it, and balancing that against the cost in your budget. The last page, I'm not going to belabor this page. This is just a strategies page, and we've utilized many of these strategies and the options that I just went over with you. They're really in the order that we normally encourage clients to consider them. You, of course, have your allowable index increase each year. Number 2, you know, once you start to make decisions on the project, we have not implemented number 2 yet, but once we get a good draw schedule from the architect on whatever project or projects you decide to do, we'll be able to estimate the interest earnings in that construction fund. And, you know, that can be a pretty meaningful number, and we wouldn't necessarily, we're always conservative in our estimates, so we wouldn't necessarily estimate the whole 5.5% where we currently are, because it's widely anticipated that the Federal Reserve Committee is going to decrease the short-term overnight lending rate that they control beginning in calendar year 2024. But we'll be able to estimate interest earnings in the construction fund at some point and use those interest earnings to downsize the amount you ultimately borrow. So at the end of the day, we want to help you keep your borrowing as small as possible, to keep it as affordable as possible. If there are any operational savings from any parts of your project, we can build them in as well to show them offsetting debt service. There may not be any, but that is a strategy. We can talk about cash contributions toward the project. That's a very delicate balance. You just did a fantastic job of getting the credit rating upgrade from both Moody's and S&P. So, you know, one of the things they focus on everything, but one of the things they focus on are your cash reserves. So, you know, you want to keep hopefully building those, and I know you have some goals around your reserves that will be helpful in that endeavor. Number 5, we've talked about this a lot. That's just, you know, breaking the borrowing into smaller pieces where where we're able, 10 million or less per calendar year. Number 6 will also be critical, that wraparound structure, meaning the payments start off smaller in the option, and then the payments ramp up when old debt service decreases, so that all in old debt service and new debt service at the end of the day, you're level. Capitalized interest, we're not utilizing any of that yet, but we may have some application once we get to that level of detail. But capitalized interest is basically one-time money, helps smooth the impact into your budget even more gradually. Debt restructuring, scenario 3, implemented a debt restructuring to show you what that might look like. And number 9, almost no one does this anymore, capital appreciation bonds are used to reduce the millage impact, but they're super expensive because instead of the interest compounding like it does on your other bonds, the interest accretes. So it's kind of like those Series E savings bonds you used to buy. I mean, you still can, but at the bank where you might pay, as an investor, you might pay $50 for it today, but 7 years from now, it matures and it's $100 or whatever the maturity period is. That's how capital appreciation bonds work. So we leave it on here as a strategy, but they tend to be very, very expensive. So I'm going to pause there. I know that's a ton of information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time, but just wanted to give you some updated food for thought as you're thinking about what you might want to undertake and when you might want to do that.
I just wanted to jump into and emphasize a few things that I think that Jamie said, is that these are illustrations. So they're not concrete plans. They're simply demonstrations to help you understand what some of the options are and what some of the impact might be. And, I think the 3 or 4 options that Jamie had presented kind of clearly outlines a few of those options. And so there's other illustrations that we could certainly consider. And then I think too is she was using information from Hayes Design. So we just listened to their presentation last month, and you'll see some of those matching values of some of the target points that she was trying to hit. So in addition, this is a process. So I think you've seen that Hayes Design has come and provide you information. This is more information on the financial side that you're receiving. And then additionally, you'll continue to receive more information. So we have Davis Demographics coming back, and additionally, a budget workshop in March that we can touch on these illustrations as well. So you'll be receiving much more, and I just wanted to make sure that we emphasize that this is a flexible plan that we've presented and is really just information for you to consider.
Thank you, Mr.
Do you have any
Manager.
specific questions for Jamie at this time?
You have anything else, Mr. Shropka?
No, nothing else at this time. But as Mr. Manzer said, I mean, these are just, again, scenarios. It doesn't mean we're moving forward with 45 or 32 or 29. It's just to give the board an idea of, if this was the case, this is what we're looking at as far as funding.
I think as we look at our facility needs, our infrastructure and the buildings that need addressed, conversations we've had about programming in our buildings, I appreciate the flexibility because it gives us more of an opportunity to discuss the impact of what it would have on the community. Mm-hmm. And what is that right amount that we can afford to move forward but minimize the impact on our community and being fiscally responsible along the way.
Absolutely.
This is a good way to, the future planning of these projects is really critical, and the financial planning is really critical. So I think this gives you just good information. It also shows multi-year approaches, and these are conversations that we continue to have, and we'll layer these into future financial presentations as well. So it's just really good information to have way ahead of time.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle.
Thank you, and I just did want to mention that your underwriter, Joe Muscatello, is on the line as well, if anyone has any questions for him.
I do have a question, and I apologize, Jamie and Jeff, thank you for coming tonight. We had a situation here in my house today, so I unfortunately didn't get there tonight. But I do have a question. And I probably know the answer to this, but I don't remember the board members and those stepping into this realm of school construction. It might be a good thing. We know we need more than $9.1 million of whatever happens, right? We know that. I mean, just regardless of whatever we decide to do, it's going to be more than $9 million. What is the timeline if we, let's say this year, we borrow the 9.1 because the interest rate is good, but we don't start construction until next year? Are we allowed to do that and extend that out like that? I know it's not an ideal situation, but I was on the interest rate and maybe what we make back in an investment while waiting and paying out properly. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and it'll depend on when you plan to enter into a contract with your architect to pick a project. Bond counsel will require that you have professional cost estimates, which, you know, that part easy. You already have professional cost estimates, but, you know, he'll want to know what your timeline looks like, because, you know, like I mentioned in the reasonable expectations test, the IRS won't let us borrow earlier than when you can have reasonable expectations to meet those requirements.
Yeah, I thought so, but I wasn't sure like if there was a way like, okay, maybe we get maybe a year of interest while we're doing all this planning kind of thing. Does that make sense to you?
You might. It depends on when you're planning on, you know, entering into that first big contract, which is usually your architect contract.
Sure.
That has to happen within 6 months of settlement.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Joe. Mr. Manzer. Appreciate the layers that we continue to add to make an informed decision here. We'll move on to academic achievement and activities. Grants and donations, you can see their numbers 1 to 3 listed below in the amounts of 500, 705, and 500. Just really continue to appreciate the work that our teachers and the Mustang Foundation do for us and for our students. Any questions or concerns on those? Do we have 5 to move them forward? Awesome. Okay. We have program of studies to go tonight. I know we have high school and middle school to cover.
Good evening, Mr. Bachman. Annually, we present the program of studies for the Plum Senior High School and Plum Middle School. It's a very comprehensive document that really provides opportunities for our students to look at what their career aspirations will be and then plan appropriate study by going through with their parents, hopefully, the program of study. We've made some significant changes this year. It is always a work in progress as we continue to strive for excellence. I'd like to introduce Mr. Bachman now, who will share some of the changes with you.
Excited to present to you guys this evening the program of studies for the high school for the 24-25 school year. Just going to kind of briefly highlight some of the changes. We will look at introducing 6 new classes for next school year. We're going to have a personal finance and economics course, which is required by PDE, offering construction technology manufacturing course, which will be a year-long course, adding back English 11, a year-long course as well, adding environmental science to our science department, adding a partners in graphics course in our arts area. Partners is a program that's been introduced here in the building. It's very successful in some of our other elective areas, and I think that'll be a great addition for our students. And then finally, offering principles of engineering, which will be a year-long course as well. Some other changes, just want to kind of quickly go through them. Currently, for our students to graduate, they must acquire 24.5 credits, beginning with the freshmen next year. We're going to ask them to complete 25 credits successfully. We are going to move away from the 6-day cycle, which we're currently using, and go to like an A or B day. Again, guys, with some of the things that we are doing, looking to offer more combinations of to students that they can choose courses that they're interested in, and that'll just give us some more flexibility. It will also limit some of the time that students are spending in study halls. On top of that, just some basic grade name changes, going from English 9 honors and honors biology to the pre-AP route. Piano, guitar, and some of those courses are going from semester and year-long and vice versa. The big thing is this: with all the changes that we're looking to make, we really know that we need to focus on our co-teaching model, instructional practices as well. We're going to begin doing those things in the second semester of this school year and really focus on that all next year as well. Thank you.
Just one point of clarification for those board members that are new. Partners is a collaborative with our general education students and our students with special needs. We have Partners Physical Education, we have Partners Art, so the Partners Piano and the Partners Graphic will give our students opportunities to be fully included. And it is such a positive experience for our general education students as well as our students that may have special needs. So I just wanted to clarify that for our new board members. Any questions that the board may have for Mr. Bachman or myself?
Do we have 5 to move it forward?
I have a question.
Yep.
Can you explain the logic with, I guess I look at this as, you know, my son's halfway through 7th grade and we recycled the same $40 in his wallet like 25 times over. What's the logic of putting 9th graders into a personal finance class rather than putting them in as they continue through their high school career? I know it's required by the state, but I have concerns with the timing of when we're introducing that to kids.
That's a great question, Mrs.
All these things are new, and I personally want to see it in 10th or 11th grade after they potentially get their first job, they're going to get a driver's license, whatever the case may be, applying for college, right? Because that's a huge financial burden, or any trade school, or any place that they're going after school, it all costs money.
Yes.
And I think that they're more in tune with life as they're a little bit older. I personally don't think in a year and a half, I could see my son grasping the concept of the personal finance class in 9th grade, just because they're checking the box that state says you gotta do it. I wanna see it where it's gonna be meaningful to them.
Let me jump in before Mr. Bachman and Ms. Sedlak answer. Just a couple thoughts I have in regards to the timing. This is the time when kids are coming to high school. This is right before they're getting jobs. They're gonna start earning money. It's also a time that having it earlier in the high school experience, because there are other courses that have finance built into it that this would be the foundation to build off of. But I'd also like to hear from our student board rep.
No, yes, thank you. To definitely.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine, you're fine. Just the sooner, the earlier that you learn it, in my opinion, would be better. Just because as a senior who's going to be going into college and has to be preparing for loans and going and pulling them out, being able to have that financial background, even if I was just a 9th grader 4 years ago learning it, you would still be able to understand more of the terminology that you would come across as you get older, and just as well as that, and then also going into more of the job part. I got my first job going into my sophomore year, so having that build in and knowing the financial part that is kind of in the background, understanding it would just make me feel more comfortable knowing where my money was going, what my money was doing, and how do I finance it appropriately.
And what FICA is and all that fun stuff, right?
Well, and I would add, in watching two teenagers and now a third going through that, I would say having that knowledge and foundation proactively rather than reactively, so that maybe there's some terms that you understand, or the snow shoveling business makes a little bit more sense as you're trying to think through it, or landscaping or babysitting or nannying or those kind of things. And not even to mention college and career pathways, and as you're thinking through those and understanding the financial ramifications of going to college or going to Forbes Road and what you're doing and making those decisions, I think doing that earlier rather than later lends itself to a much more educated decision that students are
And we
making.
did have that conversation about would this be a more appropriate class for our older students? And then just kind of talking like how you guys did decide that it would be better for our ninth grade students. We do offer a lot of financial type things in elective courses as students progress through their sophomore, junior, and senior year, that they can still get some of those types of experiences. One of which is this McCann Fund that they've been doing in the business ed department, where they're using live money and making purchases on stocks and things like that. The other thing that we have to keep in mind, the more that we require kids to do, when we say to a student, you must take this course, as PD has said that they need to do, if we don't put those required courses at the beginning of some of our students' tracks when they first get here, that allows them fewer options as they progress. One of the major things is we have over 100 students that go to Forbes CTC. If we would put that in a junior year or a senior year, it would be nearly impossible for them to get all the required credits that they would need to graduate on top of spending the time over there, which is terrific for them.
Yep, I appreciate that.
I think it was a great question from Ms. Stepnick, and the conversation was helpful.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah.
And then also my other question is, and you know, my biggest concern is these biology labs and how that's going to work. I mean, I guess I foresee this, we probably have a group of students that are more hands-on learners, right? I mean, everybody learns differently to some level. And what's the rationale behind eliminating these labs?
Again, the lab created more singleton type courses, having that additional day once a week, that when those students look to take additional courses, nothing else fit into that. So the only thing they really could do is go into a study hall. So we're looking to eliminate that. Again, we're not eliminating the lab experiences out of the course. It'll just be incorporated in the regular 42-minute, 5 periods a week course. You know, and again, oftentimes, particularly in education, we assimilate time in a seat to a better experience or students learning more, and quite obviously that's not the case where it's been right now. More time is not making our scores any better, which is why we really do need to practice on that co-teaching model and instructional practices.
Mr. Bachman, when you were speaking, I was watching our student board rep shaking her head up and down. I'm kind of curious, like, what was your thoughts in regards to being able to take more courses and?
Yeah, so when I don't have personally a science lab anymore, but when I did, it was a lot of definitely expanding on it. Whenever we had, like, we were learning and we had a lab to do, we would do that. But also, if it fell on a day where we were learning more notes, it felt like it was overtaking way too much. And even the teacher was like, I'm overloading you with information. Like, it can definitely get confusing at this point. So having only, like, getting rid of the lab could eliminate more confusion, I guess, in that sense. But also more going along the lines of the scheduling issue. I had a lot of friends who, don't quote me on this because I might be wrong with the courses, but one time one of my friends was having an anatomy class and they were also taking Physics 1, I believe, and they were, or like it was AP Bio, I don't know. Anyway, they were unable to overstack their courses because there were not that many like slots available in time-wise, and like for that to happen in order for them to take it, so because their labs would overlap. So having no lab would then create a lot more freedom, I guess, in their schedule to be able to create a better like learning path, and also for them to get the classes that they want to take without having to eliminate a different one that they would want to.
That's a great point. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Do we have, I want to move, we'll do these separate. So do we have 5 to move the high school program of studies forward? Thank you. I think that was 5 in the room, right? Okay, good. Middle school program of studies? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you coming.
Good evening. Tonight we have Dr. Zarmak, our principal, and Mr. Robovich, who's one of our 8th grade science teachers and department leaders, to share the program of studies. The overarching goal for the program of studies at the middle level is to really focus on that middle school concept, interdisciplinary learning, and prepare students to make that successful transition to 9th grade. And so I'm confident tonight that these two gentlemen will outline that approach. Dr. Zarmak.
Thank you for having us tonight. This is Mr. Robovich. He is the science head. So for our program of studies, you'll see a lot of updates were made throughout with the messages and Rachel's challenges, just general updates throughout. Our one major addition is the physical science compacted course that we're going to recommend tonight. Mr. Robovich is here. He has been overseeing that from the start, so he will kind of give you a brief overview of that course, and that will help to align better with the other options that students have as well through a compacted scheduling process.
Hi everybody, as Dr. Zarmak said, I'm Nathan Robovich. I teach 8th grade science, and I'm also the 5 to 8 science department leader. We are excited to offer this opportunity for our students to take the compacted physical science course. We think it's going to be a good opportunity for students that have an aptitude for science to go a little bit deeper into the content. It's not going to change the content. It's not a separate course with the curriculum. We just went through our curriculum review, moving the earth and space science down to the 6th grade. We have life science in 7th grade. We have the physical science in 8th grade. We already have the compacted classes with the algebra and the ELA. By adding the compacted class to our science, it just gives those students an opportunity to, again, expand on their hopefully love of science and continue that and foster that as they go into the high school with the courses that they're getting ready to adopt and implement up there as well.
I just want to add one piece. When I hear the changes occurring with the science, we're able to do this because of the shift in the resource review we went through with science. Moving Earth and Space to 6th grade, our 6th graders have science every day now, which opened up the opportunity for more programming and more opportunities for our students at the middle level. And I really appreciate the time and effort that you put into that.
Other than that, that's our major change. Everything else is just general updates for the board.
Any questions or concerns?
I'd like to, went in reviewing both of the program of studies, the high school. I just want to make a note to the public that there are numerous videos throughout on all the courses. They're brief. They're very concise, and I would completely recommend to the public to take a look at them. They introduce you to the teachers. So I want to kudos to the staffs of both the high school and the junior and the middle school for taking the time to put it out. I know a lot of those teachers, and you get to know them in the 30 seconds to 1 minute. You get to know the teacher and the course. So I think we should, it's not just a listing of program of studies. There are videos throughout.
And to add to that, just so everybody knows, if you go on to our school counselor pages, they actually have videos and they have interviews of themselves interviewing a 7th grade student to talk about their experience and what to expect at the middle school, along with an 8th grade student and their experience of what to expect at the middle school out there for the kids and the parents to see too, which I think is very nice and kind of gives them an idea before they walk in what to expect.
And I think I would say over the last 5 or 6 years, as you guys have continued to work, I think from the work you started and you guys continue to do, what I appreciate is creating that to be more and more of an interactive document that folks are using, and in the high school one where there's a course planning guide for them and there's information available, and to Mr. Sokolsky's point, there's videos that are available for folks to see, so that it's bringing the parent into the process and allowing the family to be making decisions together rather than it being something that's just being done counselor to student. And I know, Mr. Bachman, you have shared that with me, even personally, as I've mentioned that to you, that we're trying to make it more and more a team sport and team efforts, and over communicating with parents and over communicating to get the family involved with the scheduling and the program of studies as well.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
And Dr. Anderson and School Board, if I may, I'd like to introduce Mr. Preston Hartman. One of the things you'll notice throughout both programs of studies that were available for review is that we've embedded our PDLA courses. Mr. Hartman has done a tremendous job of offering similar courses to our program of studies for the middle level and the high school, but also bringing our students back into working with our teachers and keeping them here in their Plum borough and being educated in their community schools. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't give him the opportunity to share some of the additions that he worked with Dr. Zarmak and Mr. Bachman on the program of studies.
Thanks, Dr. Boyers. I'll keep it pretty brief. Just in kind of summary, the last 4 years, obviously, we created the PDLA program as a solution to a problem, and now it's just become who we are and how we operate. And one of the great attributes of the program is that not only does it give our students voice and choice here in the district, but it also gives us a great leveraging tool to work with our families that live within the district, but their students are placed in outside enrollments, whether that be an online cyber school or a charter school. Something I've worked very hard with in collaboration with high school administration over the years, and as well as others, is how do we build out this online program to compete with some of these other charter and cyber schools. And so by listening to some feedback from families and working with administration and working with our students who have gone through the PDLA program in the past, we wanted to try to continue to build out and add more course offerings, not to detract from what we're doing within our brick and mortar buildings, but more so to offer that voice and choice and to give a breadth of options for students, as well as to be enticing for those families that are in outside placements to potentially consider coming back. Obviously one of our key performance indicators on our balanced scorecard is minimizing the total number of students that are enrolled in those outside cyber schools. And so part of that process is how do we try to attract those students back, and that's by offering more of those voice and choice courses. And so what we've done is we've added about 6 courses in the PDLA program through the Imagine Edgenuity platform that would be offered for students in grades 9 through 12. We have about 330 students utilizing PDLA in some fashion or another across grades K through 12. Majority of those being at the high school. Some kiddos are full-time, others have a hybrid schedule that have PDLA courses integrated. The addition of these PDLA courses allow us a couple of things. Number one, it obviously adds more course offerings, gives students additional opportunities to earn elective credits. As we know that we're moving from 24.5 to 25, we want to make sure that we give those students in the virtual experience the opportunity to meet that graduation requirement. The other piece of that is also, as we have students for whatever reason, whether it's mental health, medical issues, or other extenuating circumstances that need to maybe move into PDLA partway through the year, or that are in PDLA and decide they are ready to transition back to in-person learning, we want to be able to have some consistency between course options. And we noticed that 2 of those big areas with the geography course and things like intro to business and forensics were some of those courses where we didn't have them available in the PDLA platform previously, but now that we're able to offer them, it again integrates the 2 and allows for a little bit of a smoother transition for those students. So those 6 courses listed are ones that we look forward to adding this year. They're all encompassed by, or covered by, I guess I should say, teachers that are already currently teaching in certification areas. So there shouldn't be any additional teacher need unless enrollment numbers change or something of the sort. But we tried to be specific in how we targeted which content areas to focus on. Any questions?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the work you do. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
We need 5 to move the middle school program of studies forward. Do we have that? Awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay. Last under academic achievement and activities is the girls' flag football proposal for spring. Mrs. Sedlak?
Yes, we had shared a little bit about this program in December. We do have secured coaches and we would like for the board to move this forward. It is sponsored by the Steelers, a $3,000 startup grant, $1,500 each succeeding year. And just found out on Sunday that the NFL is starting to do a boys on the West Coast, but when they bring in boys flag football, we will be looking at that as well. But it's not in the eastern part of the country yet. I know there were questions regarding that at the December meeting. Any questions regarding the proposal?
I'm excited
No, I just
for
want to
it.
make a comment. I love it. And I was going to bring up the Sunday thing because watching the games, there were ads with boys and girls playing flag football. So I figured they were rolling out something by doing that. So I hope that's sooner than later, out east.
Thank you. Do we have 5 to move that forward? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was at the Plum hockey game last night, and we get a tremendous amount of students show up. In fact, it's close to 50 a game, just for that sake. But there were a number of the girls that were talking about the flag football, and somebody asked, they wondered what the participation would be, and it sounded tremendously like there's going to be a lot more girls showing up than what's anticipated. I seem to see here at the high school that when girls golf got introduced, when girls wrestling got introduced, the girls are just dying to get involved. And so just as a precaution to the coaches, when the time comes and they open it up, there's going to be a lot of the athletes that are already playing in other sports that are going to show up as an offset to the flag football. So I think it's a great program.
Go ahead, Ms. Scarlett.
I can definitely 100% agree with that. It has a lot of talk. A lot of people want to do it. A lot of people want to do it. Even kids who go to the Powder Puff game, those younger students are like, oh, I want to learn how to do this so that when it's my turn to do junior and senior year, they're really, they want to learn and they want to know already how to do it and how to play the sport.
Yeah.
So I think that's really exciting. And then even with girls golf and girls tennis, they already had that. And then girls wrestling, the kids are really into it and they're doing very, very well. I know the girls wrestling did very well
really
this
well.
past weekend, I believe. So yeah, go girls.
That's awesome. Do we have 5 to move that forward? Thank you. Okay. We're going to skip down. We have 1 left under finance, the monthly financial reports. Mr. Stropkai, lead board liaison.
Mr. Manager, do you have anything at this? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess we just need to move it forward. If anybody had any questions with review of the financial report, we can.
All right, do we have 5? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have a question, not with the financial report, but under finance.
Under?
I looked back over the Hayes report, and I didn't notice anything in regards to the the Plum Middle School's sewage issue, which has been an issue for, I can't even remember when it started, because it started way back when I was doing. The question that I have is, I don't see it anywhere in the Hayes project or in the construction.
As you're aware, we're going to take a walkthrough in that building in about a week and a half. In regards to the finances, this is still evolving and there's still a lot more conversation to have. So as we have this information and I get the sense from the board of where we're going, you're going to get more in-depth plans for all the buildings. Okay?
So the sewage issue is something that just hasn't been in the presentation yet, but
they're aware of it.
We're aware of it, yeah.
Okay.
You're aware of it. One of the challenges is that it's 6 feet down under the terrazzo floor, and we've been doing quick fixes, but there needs to be a long-term solution to not only the middle school, but the O Block Elementary, and potentially looking at Pivot for additional space.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have 5 to move the monthly bills forward?
Yep.
Okay, great. I think all we have left then for tonight is policy. Ms. Aaron, lead board liaison.
Yes, we'll start with policy 003, functions to improve transparency. Ms. Sedlak?
Yes, PSBA recommends 2 to 3 policy readings because the board is responsible for governance. Setting policy is very, very important. So in the past, the district has presented the policies at the discussion meeting, voted on them at the action meeting. This will allow for more thoughtful conversation by the board, questions, and transparency for the public, because those will be posted. And so we will go to 2 readings. For example, the January policies can be discussed this evening, and then at the February discussion meeting, and then will be voted upon for adoption at the February action meeting.
I was just going to add one piece to this. Part of the themes that I believe this board has heard me talk about was, one, student voice, engagement, and being transparent. You know, your first experience as a board member was a combined meeting where policies were introduced and they were passed. I believe in truly being transparent with our community, this policy should be read twice. Not only publicly on 1 month, moving forward to the second month, because the policies are what impact our students and our community the most. There are local laws, and everybody should have an opportunity to have full view of those policies before we move those forward. So this is something that goes along with the themes that I initially talked about earlier.
Yeah, I just would add that, I 100% agree. It gives the community a chance when they hear it to come to the next meeting or even the following meeting, because it'll be 2 meetings, to raise any concerns of anything they've heard, either online or what they read in the board minutes. And, again, it's more transparent to the community, the students, teachers, anybody affiliated with the district that has any concerns. So I think it's a great. Now, that's a state mandate or not? That's just recommendation. Yes.
But it's something that we've been talking about before that information actually came from School Board Association. So.
And I think to clarify on what you said, we checked with Dane, Mrs. Sedlak, just to make sure for the board, everything that we do tonight will move forward for January's action meeting. And then going forward, starting in February, there'll be the dual readings that will happen. But this month, because this is part of this month, we'll move these policies forward.
We have to pass the policy in order
Yep. No, you're fine. We all were confused on it too, so we asked the question in order to correct it. Make sure we were doing it correctly. Yep.
Oh, I agree with you, Mark. We used to do that years ago, and I think it just gave the opportunity for people to digest whatever. But frankly, we run on policies, right? So what we're doing with that. I would like to bring something up. I don't know if it would be policy related or whatnot, but I'd like us to be able to go back and reevaluate an additional time for citizens' comments on anything that they've heard during the meeting, if that's possible. Clearly it's not this month, but I'd like to see if we can go back and maybe revisit that topic and put it on an agenda. I did get a bunch of feedback on that, and while people want to come and talk, some people also want to come and talk and listen and then maybe give additional feedback. And maybe with the policy piece, we can maybe revisit that at some point.
Yeah, we can consider that.
As, these meetings are public, right? I'm here on the meeting due to a circumstance that was unforeseen at home tonight. But with that said, why couldn't we go back to, now I'm going to say it, COVID's back out and RSV and cold and flu season. Why can't our meetings be open for people to link in and at least listen to what we're doing? Don't listen to it live. I see no reason why we can't do that. It's a simple Google Meet.
Our meeting's posted live.
And maybe those board members and administrators that want to participate in presenting for us. But maybe there's a way of at least letting members of the public listen in, live stream here this way, rather than having to wait for the recording to get posted. So there's a couple cleanup things that were my thoughts that I was reading through some of how they function, right? And kind of getting some feedback on it. So is there a way
there's Ms. Stepnick, there needs to be a lot. there needs to be conversations in regards to the technology that you're asking, in regards to making sure that we're able to do that. So it is something for us to go back as an administrative team and have some conversations about this.
But I would say on the other, that we passed the policy last month, so we can see if there's 5 to add it back to the agenda, but we passed the 3 minutes last month, so. Okay, do we have, oh, you had for 03, yep, go ahead.
Just for clarification, the previous policy noted numerous times that there needed to be a majority vote of the full board, and that in order to suspend, amend, or repeal by a majority vote of the full board. In this new write-up, there's nothing, is there a reason why we pulled full board?
Yeah, I think the issue with that reading would be if the board that is present comprising a quorum at a meeting for whatever reason would need to repeal a policy, I would say the board that is present would need the ability to do that. And obviously that's an emergency situation anyway, so you kind of do need that wiggle room for the board that's present to move everything around.
Okay, so that's why majority was taken out, or I'm sorry, full was taken out. You just need to have a quorum present.
If it's critical to operations or safety, we may have to amend and not move forward with one reading. So, yeah, okay.
I just was looking at the fact that that full board, that's 9 people as opposed to 5 people.
Yeah, I think it's the quorum, full board of the quorum who is there.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or concerns? I'm sorry, I wasn't
On
thinking.
this policy.
On policy 003.
Do we have 5? Okay, moving on to policy 011, principles for governance and leadership. I'm sure we've all reviewed the reaffirmation resolution recommended each January by the PSBA. This is a reaffirmation to our commitment to the principles for governance and leadership. Do we have any discussion on that piece?
I do. I sat on the committee 2 years ago that wrote these principles of governance with the PSBA. I don't see myself affirming the principles for a couple of reasons, if I may mention. One of the principles is lead responsibility, which means we need to work together with civility and cooperation, respecting that individuals hold differing opinions and ideas. Collaborate with the superintendent, acknowledging their role as the 10th member of the board and commissioned officer of the Commonwealth. I don't know if we acknowledge completely on the same grounds. I'll call it directors 8 and 9, and that is Ms. Chudowitz and myself. I don't know if we're collaborated with and if we're treated with the same equality that this principle deals with. I am not speaking for Ms. Chudowitz. Another principle is acting ethically, avoid actual or perceived conflicts of interest. I have some questions pertaining there. Communicating clearly, promote open, honest, and respectful dialogue amongst all the board, staff, and community. Acknowledge and listen to varied input from all stakeholders. Because I don't think we stick to that is why I will be opposing affirming the principles.
Okay, do we have 5 to move this?
Brian, you left out abiding by all policies that are subject to district personnel, volunteer, guest, and visitor-related behavior and actions. But there's a lot of things you left out as you wanted to highlight and talk about different things. But tonight your microphone has worked. For the last 2 years, you've barely touched it. So you have been a part of the conversation. You're just choosing not to participate in it. And I'm glad you're a part of the dialogue tonight because we all have to be, but that's on each one of us individually to push the button to make it green and talk. And I don't know about anybody else, but I communicate with Megan. I don't think that there's very little that, doesn't get said between us, but even when we disagree on things, I sometimes listen to her ideas, she listens to mine. But, you know, again, you just pinpointed out, and for me, but you literally haven't said a word.
I just want to add just.
Committee of the whole.
Yeah,
As a committee of the whole, there was information presented to us tonight about borrowing funds and how we go forward with it, and if there are questions. Mark isn't the one that's allowed to ask questions, but it's his committee or they have discussion, it's all of us, every single one of us.
So
And we have to.
It's hard when they're online.
This nonsense has to stop. But again, left out by any and all policies are subject to district personnel. We have to conduct ourselves the way we expect our students and staff to conduct themselves.
I just want to add a little bit to this, Ms. Sedla, or Ms. Stepnick, I'm sorry, to both. But when I have administrative meetings, and just recently, I reminded the team that there's an empty seat, and that empty seat represents our students, and the decisions we make are about moving this district forward and about our students. When I look at this, the School Board Association, and I think it's a good idea on a yearly basis in January, the beginning of the new year, a fresh start, to ask each, you should be asking yourselves as board members, do you plan on leading responsibly, ethically, plan thoroughly, evaluate? That's what I've been asking you to do in regards to the presentations moving forward, to evaluate what is in front of you and question. To communicate. I make sure that I communicate with all the board members well in advance to our board meetings so that we can have ongoing conversations. Advocate and govern. This is about all of you reflecting on how you as a board want to move forward as a group. And I would ask you that when you're thinking about that, to look at our student board rep that's sitting to my left. Because the decisions you make and the way that you present yourselves in public, our students are watching. And we need to move forward together in the interest of our students and our community. So I like the idea, Dr. Anderson, that we go over this on a yearly basis, because it should be a reminder to all of us of why we're sitting around the table. It is not about the politics. It's not about the individual grievances that you may or may not have. It's about our students and about our districts and making the big decisions and governing this district to set forth a vision so that the administrative team can move forward. Everything else, honestly, does not matter. So I apologize. I'm going to get off my soapbox on this, but I think it's important on a yearly basis that you all self-reflect on what that is actually saying. And by the way, it is our current policy.
Yeah.
So just please be mindful of that. And I would ask us all as a team of 10, and I'm saying this publicly, to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I just wanted to add.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I've reviewed these quite a few times as a new school board director. The principles are clearly written and concise. I'm committed to them, and I'd like to see, like you mentioned, Dr. Anderson, reaffirming every 2 years.
Yeah, or even every year, like
Yeah.
you're saying, absolutely. But
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I think it's good for new board members and old board members to be able to make that decision together and reaffirm the current policy and be able to kind of say that to the public that this is where we stand, absolutely.
Okay, so do we have 5 on this one?
The only thing I'll add, excuse my voice, I apologize for not being there, but I'm sick, and since I was mentioning a couple of comments, I will say that I agree with reviewing these policies, and I think we should be mindful, not just yearly or bi-yearly, but every time, daily, on what each of us brings to the table and how we can contribute to the goal. And, you know, off committees, when everybody's actions, we have to take ownership and responsibility and work together. We have some big decisions coming up, and it's going to take each and every one of us to have valuable input and to honestly listen to one another, and not have a lot of what you see going on. So I want to take a moment think we should all be self-reflective in.
Appreciate your comments, Ms. Chudowitz. You want to do number 3?
Yep, moving on to policy 800, records management. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Sedlak.
Yes, policy 800 was updated to incorporate general references to security measures to address the responsibility of service providers in record management. This really, Mr. Luletta, Mr. Manzer, and a lot of attorneys have looked at this, and it really is for data breaches and encryption. So we would ask that the board move this policy forward.
Do we have 5 to move this forward?
Yep.
Okay. Policy 830, breach of computerized personal information.
Yes, this is a brand new policy with PSBA with some of the laws. This again was something in regard to data breaches. There's a technology organization and Sweet Williams Cats out east that have really looked at this policy. You'll notice that the green, in the red and green line version, the green is PSBA's recommendation, the red are the district recommendations. So this policy, in working with tech directors from across the Commonwealth, as well as attorneys that specialize in technology, we would ask that the board move this policy forward.
I do have a question on this one. For the personal information, it looks like it was our recommendation to have like medical information, health insurance, username, but they recommended to remove that. I feel like those are important pieces that we don't want to be breached and we should notify individuals of. Is that covered in the other areas?
Yes, there are, based on, we tried to have this as broad and generic so that we could make determinations that are not as specific, and we could secure our data much more easily with a broader definition in regard to this policy.
Let me jump in. I apologize, I stepped out for a second, but the way that it is worded is not to specifically disclose our internal procedures in regards to safety and security and how we operate in regards to some of the housekeeping items on the back end, because it could reveal how we operate. So we wanted to make sure that it gave us the utmost flexibility, but also protected how we move forward. I apologize if that's not the answer you're looking for, but I caught the conversation.
We contract with third party for health insurance. We do not house much of this data that is in 4, 5, and 6. And so again, in looking at redacting some of that information, we felt that it was much more advantageous because we can't control what third-party vendors are responsible for. Does that make sense?
I have a question, yeah. As you said, Ms. Sedlak, this is a new policy, so I would just like clarification on 2 things in it. One is, so therefore it's a violation if you access another individual's confidential documentation, copy and disseminate it under this policy to another person. And also, is it I believe it's a violation to also access student emails and information and then contact the students. Am I correct in that?
I'm not sure where you're reading that.
The way the policy reads.
Are you talking about 830?
Yeah, but what page on 830? The first question you asked, I don't believe we need a policy to act ethically in regards to maintaining confidential information, but this confirms that?
Yeah, I was just asking if something like that would happen, it would fall under this policy now.
It could fall under 824 in regards to interactions with, it could fall under policy 824 in regards to how we communicate with kids and appropriate professional distance. So a lot of these policies and the language overlap with other policies that get more specific.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Dr. Walsh, can I ask a question, or maybe, I'm sorry for this whole thing, but maybe maybe in person, I don't know. Policy 24, like how we communicate with students, does that also cover how we communicate about students?
Well, I'll defer to our solicitor. I mean, well, I'll defer to our solicitor.
You know, I'm not looking at 824 right now, but yes, yeah, I guess that's why we switched. Yes, 824 just generally deals with protecting student confidentiality. So general term, yeah, if anytime anyone on this board is discussing a student in any way, the ultimate care needs to be used. And I think you've seen that from this administration, even dealing with student agreements. We often make sure the board is okay with the language, try not to totally divulge the student's identity. So long answer, yes. 824 would potentially impact how the repercussions for someone who would share student information. And two, all of the CBAs have just cause provisions, so if it was an employee who unjustly or incorrectly shared student information, there would also be a recourse against that employee. So does that answer the question?
It does, just so the reaffirmation resolution would just be saying the same thing. We have 824, we all agree that that's how we should conduct ourselves. And the student, staff, school board members, volunteers, everybody that participates in some way, shape, or form, we all function under the same umbrella. That's what and then we are being mindful about how we communicate about our students and how we share information. I just want to make sure I was understanding it.
Absolutely, and if I can say too, these two last policies, 830 and 830.1, there was a lot of work put into them because the legislator came out with a totally new not totally new statute, but really amended the statute dealing with data breaches. So basically every school district has had to work hard to figure out how they want to incorporate those legislative changes. And I can say here at Plum School, we had several team meetings with myself, administrators, the technology department. So a lot of thought went into how do we want to manage records here at the district, while at the same time leaving us as much autonomy as the statute will grant us. So that's how kind of the wording and the crafting of these two policies came about.
Do we have 5 to move that forward?
Okay, we have the last item, another new policy, 830.1, data governance, storage, and security.
Mr. Dice gave a great introduction.
Yes.
In regard to Act 151 of 2022 regarding data encryption and security, as well as storage. And I think he pretty much summed up the new code very precisely.
Thank you.
Do we have 5 to move that forward?
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry. The information that I talked about from the last policy is now included in this policy. So does it make sense here, or should it be taken out?
Can I see that?
I'll double check it, and again, we reviewed this administratively probably a month ago now. And if I recall, there were a lot of kind of minutia decisions like that were driven by the statute. That being said, I think that's a great point. Obviously, we should hold people's health records with the utmost confidentiality. So I'll take another look at both policies in regards to that. But off the top of my head, I really think there would be a reason for that. But I'll get back to you.
I just want to add that with the third-party providers, we are in contact with them in getting assurances in regards to making sure everybody is compliant in regards to data security. So there may be some overlap with some of these policies on account of that.
And I think if we move both of these forward, we can offer clarification via email before the voting meeting to make sure to take care of that. So
Okay.
just the last
Do
one.
we have 5? All right, that's it for policy tonight.
Okay. Upcoming public meeting, board action meeting, Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, 7 PM here in the library. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All right, third, fourth? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, good, thank you.
Oh, yeah, this is the 11. Yeah. Thank you.
You're amazing.
I've been doing this a long time.
Good at it. Can't retire.
I've earned it.
I know.